Happy Friday, everyone, and welcome to MALN Opinion Plus, the weekly series airing every Friday. This is a space for our opinions where we talk about current events and questions the Latino community is curious about. Today we are joined by Jetta, Executive Director of MassKids. She also directs the Enough Abuse campaign and co-chairs the policy committee of the National Coalition to Prevent Child Sexual Abuse and Exploitation. Welcome to our show this week, Jetta.
Oh, thank you so much for having me.
Of course, it's a pleasure. I was hoping if we could start off, if you could give us an introduction to MassKids, including its mission and history.
Oh, I'd be pleased to. MassKids is actually the oldest statewide child advocacy organization in the U.S. It was formed back in 1959, specifically to improve the lives of Massachusetts' most vulnerable children. And of course, over the various decades, that has included children who have been homeless, HIV individuals, throwaway youth, abused and neglected children, individuals, young infants with shaken baby syndrome. So we really have been looking to speak out on behalf of those children whose parents, for some reason or other, are really not able to advocate for them directly. So it's been an exciting 60-year history.
Wow, yeah. It must be amazing to see how it has developed and grown since then. If you could tell us a bit about the different programs the organization currently offers, along with the other campaigns that you direct and oversee.
Right. Well, in this current decade, the organization has been very focused on the prevention of child sexual abuse. We've been involved since actually the mid-'80s when we did the first statewide media campaign on child sexual abuse. There was a lot of quiet time after that when the country was really not focusing very much on the issue. But after a few high-profile cases, the public really began to think about the issue. So back in 2002, we received one of only 3 grants in the country from the federal CDC, the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention. And their challenge to us at the time was build adult and community responsibility for preventing child sexual abuse. Because at that point in time, most of the responses to sexual abuse was to educate little children, kindergarten, grade 1 and 2, about good touch, bad touch, red flag, green flag. And the government really said, where are the adults in this equation? And so they issued us what turned out to be a 5-year grant with the charge to develop a comprehensive strategy or set of strategies to prevent child sexual abuse from ever happening. Okay, so our focus is really what we call primary prevention. We obviously support efforts to report cases and clearly want to support services that will treat affected children. But our real hardcore mission is to prevent child sexual abuse from happening in the first place. And so in 2002, during that 5-year period, we launched something called the Enough Abuse campaign. And this was intended to be kind of a community mobilization, citizen education initiative that would really bring home to parents and to professionals, how serious this problem was and how much it was impacting our children. And so we developed a wonderful set of curricula over the years, very research-based, and began to train trainers who would go out into the community and for free educate community groups and schools and youth organizations. Well, since then, we have progressed a great deal. Our work right now has been focused primarily on schools and youth organizations because, that's where children live and learn and play. And so we want to make sure that schools are really equipped to be able to early identify cases of child sexual abuse. And so we have a number of initiatives in that regard. We've developed, for example, an online course which is specifically for schools, and the other is specifically for youth organizations. The one for schools has actually been researched in a very formal way and has been published. The results have been published in a peer-reviewed journal. And so we now can look to this course as an evidence-informed course. In other words, a course that is proven to be effective. The great thing about it, Berlin, is that the teachers and the school employees who complete this 1-hour online interactive course are very enthusiastic about it. For example, just today I learned that we've reached over 800 school employees in the city of Lowell, Massachusetts, who have taken on this course. And there are multiple school districts in the state, as well as some other states that have adopted the course. So we're very excited about that. We have also been very much involved in the issue of legislative advocacy, because, if you can create laws that affect many, many, many children, you really are making a dent in social change, which is really what we're looking for.
Right.
And so we're very, very busy working on trainings, virtual trainings now because of the COVID, working with schools and youth organizations around not only training, but policies. One of the things I have to share with you is that, it's not sufficient. Well, let me just say, our goal should not be to make sure that we all know how to report cases after the fact. Obviously, we all do. But the real goal is to prevent the cases from happening in the first place.
Mm-hmm.
And so how do you do that? Well, you start to look at violations of boundaries that can occur between adults and the children that they serve. So we have developed, for example, 20 boundary violating behaviors your school should know about and avoid, and 24 youth organizations. These are very, very specific kinds of behaviors that we feel adults should not, engage in with children. So simple things like, not giving gifts to kids unless everyone in the class gets a gift. Not asking a child to, friend you on Facebook. Not offering a child a ride in your car. Making sure that when you meet with children, that all of your behaviors are what we say are observable and interruptible. In other words, there are relationships and interactions that have to be more or less one-on-one. For example, if a child is being counseled or that type of thing, but we basically say, no, we have to have a no locked door policy. If possible, windows on the doors so people can peek in and no one feels that they can do anything that might be abusive towards a child. Anyway, we have all of these boundary violations and we disseminate those to schools. We also have a wonderful code of conduct, which has taken us a long time to develop. It really reflects the best codes that we've seen in multiple schools around the country. And that code is now ready to be shared with schools and youth organizations so that they don't have to reinvent the wheel. Schools
Right.
and youth organizations are busy, busy places. And so we want to say to them, we've done the research and we can share with you a model code of conduct, and check your current code and see if there's some missing pieces, and start doing a little cutting and pasting, to see if you can bring your code to a higher level. So that's kind of the work that we're involved in right now.
Right. Yeah, those specifics seem so important, and it's just great to see them. You're tackling these issues from so many aspects. And it's just really interesting because I've been taught, don't go into the stranger's car, and exactly like that emphasis on the children of like the good touch, bad touch that you're saying.
Yeah.
I didn't even think about that, but you're right. It's really thinking about prevention and who else is involved in these situations.
Well, Berlin, about a third or so of sexual abuse cases happen within the family or the extended family, and about 2/3 happens within the child's circle of trust. The person in the school, the custodian, the coach, the teacher sometimes, in some cases, the minister, a counselor in a summer camp. And so in most of the cases, children know and trust the person who is planning to abuse them. So it's a real violation of not only their body, but of their trust. And for many, many children, the trauma really extends beyond the act itself or beyond the abuse itself. We see that sometimes children have lifelong consequences based on the trauma that they've experienced. And they really often have difficulty trusting other people. It's really a legacy that we don't want to, hand down to our children. So this is, I think, the most important work on the planet. I know there are very many other important things, but if we can't give our children a safe and a nurturing and healthy childhood, we're not going to survive as an important society.
Right. I want to clarify for our audience that although we're approaching the end of April, it is Child Abuse Prevention Month and Sexual Assault Awareness Month. And I was going to ask how you think abuse and sexual assault can uniquely affect children, and you went into that. And I think that's really important to note. Do you think the pandemic could have intensified these issues in any way?
Yes, unfortunately, we have now data from the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children and some other international groups that are documenting the very high increase in online sexual exploitation of children. And this is happening around the world. It's not just in America. So, there are many organizations that are now trying to figure out, how do we keep kids safe online? And again, because of the pandemic, those predators who would abuse our children have taken that opportunity to engage more people from the public in these kinds of acts. And so it's been really difficult for children. It really has been called by public health and law enforcement experts a pandemic within a pandemic. And so we are working with our national partners at the National Coalition to Prevent Child Sexual Abuse to really take a look at, all the various strategies that we need to employ in order to really make kids safe in their homes, in their schools, in their youth organizations, and certainly online.
Thank you for bringing that up. I haven't even would have thought of that, really. I would think instead, there's less interaction, so there's less possibility.
There are more children online during the pandemic, and also, parents are overwhelmed with a lot of the remote learning requirements, and so and also those school teachers and school nurses and school resource officers who normally interact with children on a daily basis and who might be more likely to identify a child who might be needing safety. Those individuals are not really there, except sometimes through, virtually. And so we have seen a significant drop in the number of reported cases to Child Protective Services here in our state and in other states as well. So now that school is beginning to be more, present, we're hoping that our continued training will help these school employees to identify kids who really need some support and some safety.
Right. I want to make sure we have some time to talk about the two prevention initiatives relating to these topics. We'd love to hear about the Pledge to Prevent campaign and the Pass the Prevention Package legislative campaign.
This is very exciting. For a few years now, we've been working with Senator Joan Lovely from Salem and Representative John Lawn from the Waltham area to develop a real good package of prevention bills that would pass and that would make Massachusetts, kind of at the top of the list in terms of our response to child sexual abuse. And so we do now have introduced a number of prevention bills that would do some amazing things. One of them would mandate that schools and youth organizations educate all of their staff and all students about child sexual abuse prevention using evidence-informed curricula and training materials, and that they also adopt a comprehensive code of conduct. That would be really critical. So that has now been introduced in the House and the Senate. And another bill would really create better screening protocols for people who are seeking to work in schools. Right now, they all go through these criminal background checks. But the problem is that experts tell us that, 90% of sexual molesters of children pass these CORI checks because they've never been caught by the law. And so simply having a clean CORI doesn't mean that the children will be safe in your facility. So we need higher, better, more comprehensive training and screening materials. So now there's a piece of legislation that would require an applicant to a school to answer a specific set of questions. Have you ever been investigated for any kind of sexual misconduct against a child? Have you ever surrendered your license in lieu of being investigated? Was your license as a teacher ever revoked or taken away from you permanently? And the person has to answer those questions. And secondly, they have to give you permission to ask the same questions of their previous school employer. Okay. And then they have to make sure that they give you permission to share information between one school and another. That's really important. Right now, that is a problem because some people don't share information. They're concerned about being sued if they say anything except, well, he worked here during this particular school year. Okay. There's also another important piece to this. When the Catholic Church clergy abuse case happened, we heard again and again about priests who were engaged in sexual misconduct being pushed to another parish without anyone's knowledge. Okay, the same dynamic is happening now within some schools around the country, and it has become known as a practice called passing the trash. This is how it's been termed. I don't think it's a particularly good title, but that's the quick way people understand this. And so in Massachusetts, this particular piece of legislation, which is which has been introduced by Representative Natalie Blais and also Senator Joan Lovely, would basically prohibit schools from aiding and abetting an employee engaged in sexual misconduct from from getting a job in another school. In other words, passing the person, maybe even engaging in a confidentiality agreement so that it's all kept kind of quiet and under wraps. So, those specific provisions of those laws will really help schools to make sure that the people who are in the school are really safe for children. So it's an exciting time legislatively. And we have created a campaign called Pass the Prevention Package. Pass the Prevention Package. And so if you go to enoughabuse.org, which is our website on sexual abuse prevention, you will see there on the side that you can go in and learn about the prevention package. You can learn about those specific bills, what the history of the bill is, why it's critical to pass these bills, and then you can send an immediate letter to your particular senator or legislator or representative, telling them that you feel these bills are important and that you want them to vote yes on these bills and you want them to co-sponsor those bills. So if there are, your listeners and viewers out there who really want to do something that is not difficult, but they really want to be on the record as preventing child sexual abuse, please go to enoughabuse.org and make that extra step to send a letter to your representative so that these bills will pass. That would be really important. And then you mentioned Pledge to Prevent. We don't have enough staff, none of us do, to go out and train all the parents and the people who need to be trained around our state. And so a couple of years ago, we created Pledge to Prevent, and you can go to that site at pledgetoprevent.org. And what it is there are 25 different pledges, all the way from, I want to talk to my 5-year-old child about body boundaries and privacy, and I need to know how to do that, to the person who says, I want to go to my school and say to them, do we have this in our code of conduct? Are we really a safe school? Or it could even be someone who says, we don't have a piece of legislation in our state that protects our kids in youth organizations, but another state does. Can I go to my legislator and say, can we pass this bill in our state? There is a whole range of different kinds of pledges that you can take. But the exciting thing is, Beilin, when you select one of those pledges, you immediately get an email. And it says, thanks for taking the pledge to whatever you pledge to do. Here are links that we have vetted for you that will help you learn about the issue and what you can do so that you can carry out your pledge. So it's a way to take the awareness that I think is very, very strong out there in the public based on all the high profile cases, but taking that awareness and moving it to education, which can then lead to prevention actions. That's what the Pledge to Prevent is all about. You can go to the pledge and you can actually, what we say is show your hand, take a stand, prevent child sexual abuse. A lot of people go on, they upload their photograph, they put the word enough there. They'll let us know in 2 words who they are. I'm a teacher and a mother. I'm an architect and a survivor. I'm an actress and a Kappa Delta sorority sister. Whatever it is, you add 2 words to your photo. And then when people go through the gallery, they say, oh, wow, look at all the people from all different walks of life who are making a difference in working to prevent child sexual abuse. So we want thousands of people to go to our Pledge to Prevent. And we want them to take a pledge and do something. It isn't difficult to do. If you care for a child of your own, and if you certainly care for all of our children, there is something concrete, specific, and achievable that you can do. So we urge you to do it today. Go to Pledge to Prevent. Take the pledge.
Thank you so much for all this great information and your crucial work for going into that. We hope to have you again. Really, there's so much information, but thank you so much for talking with us, Executive Director Bernier, and for being our guest on MALN Opinion Plus.
Thank you.
Everyone, please tune in next week for another episode. You can follow us on Twitter at MA Latino News and Instagram at MA_Latino News. I'm Belen Dumont with MALN Opinion Plus, and I will see you all next time.